Isn't it such a delight when daughters tie the knot? My stepdaughter Hannah and I may not share a blood relation, but we've been living together for 15 years. When she was 13, I married her dad, Ricardo. Initially, she wasn't thrilled about her father remarrying smack in the middle of her rebellious teen phase, but as she grew up, she chilled out and we even became shopping partners. Well, more like she'd pester me until I'd buy her the things she wanted, but I digress. It was way cuter than her constantly acting out. Although she completed college, she didn't land a steady job and seemed kinda directionless, which got me worried. But then she brought home someone she wants to marry and I thought, whew, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. I couldn't have guessed that their impending wedding would result in Ricardo bringing up the D word, divorce. I'm Karen, a 50-year-old director at a prominent company. Ricardo, my spouse, is a 60-year-old government employee. We tied the knot when I was 35 and on the fast track to the top. We made the impulsive decision to get hitched after meeting on a project. Since then, he'd often tell me,
I married an uppity woman like you. You're lucky not to be labeled as a spinster.
And say it like I owed him gratitude. I assumed this was his clumsy way of assuaging his guilt about introducing a kid to our marriage, so I didn't take it to heart. My job kept me occupied, yet neither he nor Hannah lifted a finger around the house. If I was away on a work trip, they'd go,
What about dinner for me and Hannah?
Dining out was a no-go since they were both finicky eaters. So I'd spend my days cooking meals and storing them in the fridge before heading out. What irked me most was on my days off. If I attempted to leave the house, Ricardo would turn possessive, demanding things like,
Text me every hour,
and
I'm tracking your location with GPS.
His ex-wife had cheated on him and left, which seemed to fuel his mistrust. Hannah, perhaps she was also traumatized, because anytime I spent too long on my phone, she'd nag, Are you chatting with your boyfriend? It was a pain when I didn't want her to see who I was talking to, but I thought their clinginess was because they cared about me. Looking back, I realized I was quite naive. The day Hannah introduced the man she wanted to marry was a gorgeous sunny spring day. They had a chance encounter at a bar, and he seemed like a stand-up guy. When I asked about his job, it turned out he was an employee at my company. He recognized my name, and we had a blast chatting about work. And then he left. Just when I was reveling in this pleasant moment, Ricardo and Hannah beckoned me to the living room. Curious why they were acting so serious, I complied.
Well, can we say kudos?
He began, and I thought they were expressing gratitude for raising a child not biologically mine. Nah, it wasn't exhausting at all. I've truly enjoyed raising our daughter. Thanks, Hannah. I replied, visualizing her blissful future with that terrific young man, feeling like the past 50 years of sweat and toil were being recognized. But then, he threw me a curveball.
Well, thank you. You've fulfilled your role now.
Fulfilled my role? I questioned, perplexed.
That's why I said thanks. And also, so long.
Unable to grasp his words, I blinked in bewilderment. Then, Hannah chimed in. Gosh, Mom, you're slow. We're moving in here. It's kinda cramped, you know? You're moving in? Well, I don't mind living together. I tried to keep up as they grew impatient. What I'm trying to say is that he'll start working now, and I'll handle the chores. Oh, that's a good thing. I tried to reply optimistically.
We don't need two women here.
Ricardo cut in impatiently. So, what's your point? Dad, just get to it. Hannah chimes in. As he sits up straight and gazes right at me, he proclaims.
The truth is, I married you because I wanted a maid to look after Hannah while she was growing up.
It was like a sledgehammer blow to the head. I never saw those words coming.
Honestly, I thought you were an older and unattractive woman, but hey, you seemed to have a thing for me, and I guess there weren't many talkers for marriage.
Seizing the perfect moment, Hannah interrupts. You were so stuck up and bossy, Mom. Constantly nagging and looking down on us. I just couldn't take it. I was resolute in disciplining her, strictly as a mother, but I didn't realize she saw me that way. I thought her defiance was just a teen phase. As they exchanged nods, they announced,
So, since you're no longer necessary, we're getting a divorce.
Their words carried the heat of a triumphant, Finally, we've said it. You had it coming.
Also, all the savings are mine. Make sure to leave my checkbook here.
He adds. I went into a mental fog. This household that I believed would collapse without me, these two self-centered people, I endured their high-handed behavior thinking they'd be in a bind without me. They just didn't get it. No, I had to get out before they did. Quick. Quick. Suddenly filled with an overwhelming sense of freedom, I stood up and blurted out. Really? Well, let's get divorced.
Wow, you're surprisingly cool with this.
He looked a tad shaken, but relieved that I wasn't putting up a fight.
Then pack your bags, pronto.
He handed me the ready-to-go divorce papers. I hastily grabbed them, signed, and shoved them into my pocket, saying, I'll file these at City Hall tomorrow. As soon as I submitted the divorce papers, I rang up a moving company and asked them to ship my stuff to a certain address. Just like that, I walked out of the house I had called home for 15 years. Fast forward 3 weeks, my phone buzzes at work. It's from Hannah's fiancé. To me, he was a stranger, but his urgent tone led me to duck into an empty conference room.
I had to get in touch. Sorry to disrupt your workday. Why aren't you at home?
Sorry for dropping the bomb. My husband and I split up.
Why did you get a divorce?
That's between us. Don't sweat it. Go on and live your best life. I couldn't spill that my daughter and husband had told me I have fulfilled my role, hence divorce, and my words were vague. He let out a little tisk. He probably thought I didn't catch it, but it was a definite tisk.
Understood. I look forward to maintaining our relationship.
He extended his hand for a shake, but truth be told, I was thrown. Well, I've cut ties with Hannah and her dad, but best of luck. I cheered him on. He looked disheartened, but he graciously backed off. Later, I get a call from Hannah. He broke off her engagement. Mom, did he badmouth me to him? She started bawling on the line. He asked about the divorce, so I just glossed over it, I responded. Liar! You must have said something. There's no way he'd abruptly call it off. She wouldn't take my word for it. Regardless of what you think, I didn't do anything, and you and I are strangers now. It came out cold, but there was nothing I could do, so I tried to hang up. Hold up! Mom, where are you now? You packed up real quick, huh? Are you shacked up with your boyfriend or something? I was under suspicion, it seemed. No, I'm at a distant relative's place. Liar! I knew it. I'll demand alimony from you. She abruptly ended the call. Sure, I was hit with a sudden divorce, but if the reason for the split is my alleged cheating, she can claim alimony. That being said, it was a false allegation I completely overlooked. A week later, Ricardo gave me a ring. He told me a real estate agent had gotten in touch about showing the condo.
What the heck? I wasn't clued in about selling.
Well, it's mine, and if I'm not living there, of course I'd sell it. I laid it out for him. I could hear Hannah making a commotion in the backdrop. Hold on, Dad. Isn't this place yours?
Zip it. Just hold on.
Don't you remember transferring the title halfway through? We had to because the mortgage payments in your name were falling behind. That's right. Hannah's card was tied to Ricardo's account, and her careless spending had cleaned out his savings. I warned her multiple times, but I couldn't do anything about the automatic withdrawals. Totally unaware, since I was handling the household finances, Ricardo assumed that having the mortgage under my company's name would be beneficial somehow. And since I took care of all the paperwork and all he had to do was sign, he'd totally forgotten about it. By the time of our split, his account was in the red, and Hannah seemed freaked out about being busted. She probably thought once we divorced, she'd snag my assets and dodge any fallout. Anyway, keep it tidy so we can get a good prize. I was about to end the call when Ricardo interjected hurriedly.
Hold up. It'll probably be best if you're there for the showing. It's this Sunday. Could you swing by, please?
After mulling it over, I relented. Sure. I'm worried about you guys tidying up, and decided to stop by their place. When I walked in, it was just as I'd imagined. The place was buried under dust and junk. Looked like nobody had cleaned in a month. I vaguely recalled someone proudly vowing to take over the chores. As I was silently gathering up the trash and diving into this familiar cleaning routine, Ricardo saunters over with a photo.
What's this?
At a glance, it was a picture of me and a blonde young guy walking into the condo together.
You've been two-timing all along, haven't you?
Hannah seized the chance to point the finger at me. Ha! I knew it. You've been messing around with such a young guy. Gross.
Now this makes me think. The alimony. Let's just say I'll take this condo,
he said, slapping the picture onto my cheek. I can't believe it. And here I thought my dad was the only one. Ugh, can't stand these high rollers. Splashing cash and keeping a side piece.
You've got a rep too, right? I'll keep a lid on this, but I expect a little hush money, he pressed.
I caught you glancing at your phone from time to time. You never answered me when I asked who it was. You were in touch with him, weren't you? Finally, I admitted. Yes. They lit up like fish that had just found water. I knew it! You've been seeing him all along. Unbelievable. The two of them started to lay into me loudly. Cool as a cucumber, I answered. Well, he is my son. They froze.
What did you say?
My son has been in Italy all this time. My ex-husband was Italian and we had to relocate to Italy. I couldn't get used to the foreign lifestyle and ended up getting neurotic. My half-Italian son, however, took to Italy just fine. I thought he'd be happier if I didn't uproot him to the US, so I left him there reluctantly. This was before I married you.
I had no idea.
I never told you. After coming back to the US, I threw myself into work to forget about my son. In a way, I owe my current status to him. I gazed at the picture of my son. So why is he in the US now? Turns out, he developed an interest in NBA. He found out I was living here and reached out. He wanted to live in the US, so I gave him a hand. We ended up hitting it off. He told me he doesn't hold the past against me. That's why I'm living with him now. It's like a blast from the past. As I smiled contentedly, the two of them were so stunned they hit the deck. Hold up. What are we going to do about money? Dad, you're retired now. It hit me that Ricardo had retired without thinking of working again post-retirement.
Well, I was hoping your hubby would bring home the bacon. I wasn't keen on the daily grind anymore.
Are you kidding me? We've got no condo, no savings. We're flat broke.
Oh, shush.
They started to bicker at the top of their lungs. You've mentioned alimony before, but I think it's about time I got some myself. Being treated like I'm yesterday's news, it makes me wonder about your sanity.
I even married a 35-year-old leftover. You must have been living the life.
Well, I was a divorcee. I thought you were joking when calling me a leftover, but you were dead serious. I was floored. What about child support? You were technically my mom. Shouldn't you help raise me? Hannah, true to form, began to talk without thinking. Listen, that's for minors. You're a grown woman, 28. Get that through your head. As she pouted, Ricardo sweet-talked.
Hey, would you think over our divorce?
I couldn't help but step back.
The truth is, I brought up divorce because I thought you were having an affair with that guy who turned out to be your son. I didn't want to split. I love you, so...
He made my blood boil. How could he claim to love me after treating me like garbage? I refuse, I said loud and clear.
Just because you're a whiz at work, don't get ahead of yourself. Women like Hannah who can't do jack are way better.
But she can't even keep a house. I've taught her many times.
That's because you were a lousy teacher. Oh, about the alimony. It's your fault because you didn't raise her right.
Hannah jumped in. Yeah, that's it. Since you didn't raise me right, you should fork over the alimony. It's your fault we're in this mess. They drove me so crazy. I didn't even want to breathe the same air. Just then, a real estate agent showed up with a potential buyer, so I put on a brave face and showed them around the apartment. The pair sat quietly. The potential buyer said, "What a lovely family you have," which was a bitter pill to swallow. When the viewing ended, I bolted as soon as I could with a real estate agent. It felt like a dream that I had been living with them just a while ago. Even though it had only been a month, it felt like a lifetime. Thinking about the 15 years I had given them left a bad taste in my mouth, but I decided to stop dwelling on it. I still have my whole life ahead of me. I can't let them play me anymore. I made up my mind then. The house sold, and they were shown the door. They refused to leave, so I hired movers to pack up their stuff and send it to Ricardo's rundown family home. It's seen better days, but it's habitable. They seemed to have thrown in the towel and are living there now. The real estate agent managing the house contacted me, saying it had turned into a dump, and asked if I could do something about it. I declined, saying, "They're no longer my problem." My son decided to put down roots in the US and is studying to become an Italian teacher. We decided to share the chores, and whoever has time cooks meals. Even simple tasks like taking out the trash are shared, a far cry from when those two dumped all the work on me. I thanked my first ex-husband for raising our wonderful son. One day, Hannah was waiting for me under my apartment building. She looked like a mess. Her clothes were dirty, and her hair and skin were lackluster. A far cry from the days when she pampered herself at spas and bought clothes without batting an eye using credit cards. When she saw me, she started crying. "Mom, I'm sorry. Please come back." But it's too late for apologies, especially after treating me like a maid. Just then, my son happened to walk by and was taken aback to see her.
Is she the...
He asked me in perfect English. It gave her a glimmer of hope. "You're her son? Then we're siblings," she said, looking at him intently. Since I had already spilled the beans to him, he replied coolly,
"No, we're not siblings. Do you need something?"
Despite his cold shoulder, she persisted. "I'm in a mess. It's your mom's fault things are like this. You must share some responsibility too." "Hey, Hannah." I started, but my son cut in.
My mom has fulfilled her role, right? Well, so have you. Bye,
he said, giving a wave. He then put his arm around me and we walked into the apartment, leaving Hannah standing there speechless. In the elevator, my son asked,
"What's that saying in English? You reap what you sow?"
"Yeah, that's it," I replied, laughing. Since then, I've been living a happy life with my real son. My Italian ex-husband and I have become good pals, and we're planning to visit him soon. We might even get back together, but that's still up in the air. For now, my son and I can't wait for our trip to Italy.